I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here, writing about how I found out my wife, Emily, was cheating on me. We'd been together for 8 years, married for 5. I thought we had a decent, stable relationship, nothing perfect but enough to make me believe in the future. She was the kind of woman who always seemed a little aloof, sharp-tongued, quick to dismiss anything she didn't want to deal with. I guess that should have been a red flag, but I always blamed it on her being busy or just stressed out. Still, there were moments I looked at her and felt like I didn't really know her anymore. When I first started noticing the signs, it was subtle. She'd be late from work and wouldn't answer her phone, but that wasn't unusual. She was always busy, right? Then I caught her in little lies. She'd say she was going to the grocery store, but I'd find receipts from restaurants downtown, places I'd never been to with her. Small stuff, but it kept piling up. I'd ask her about it, and she'd brush me off, call me paranoid, or accuse me of mistrusting her. That's when I started feeling the cracks in our relationship. But the real turning point was about a month ago. I noticed her acting weird around her phone. She'd hide it when I came near, and she'd never used to care about my being nosy. I know, biggest mistake was not checking sooner, but I didn't want to believe she'd cheat. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Then I found her phone one afternoon when she was out. I wasn't trying to snoop, honestly. I was just looking for a charger. But there it was, open on her screen, some message thread with a guy I didn't recognize. The conversation was suggestive, flirtatious, and it made my stomach sink. I felt a cold wave of shock. How could she do this? We had rough patches, sure, but I never thought she'd actually step outside of what we had. I pulled her phone out and looked at the messages. They were full of sneaky, dirty talk, plans to meet up, even detailed descriptions of their encounters. The worst part, they had exchanged numbers after dropping off a hawk we found injured last month. Yeah, she's into some wildlife rehabilitator guy, Ben or something, carefully tending to this injured hawk we came across, and somehow that became their secret meeting point. I guess they started texting during the rehabilitation sessions, then moved to meet in person. The camera footage from the center's surveillance confirmed it. They'd meet in the examination room when no one was looking. I saw the footage myself. I can't even describe how much that hurt. I sat there in shock, staring at her phone, feeling sick. My mind was racing, trying to process how someone I loved could betray me like this, with someone who was supposed to be caring for injured birds, not playing dirty with my wife. I didn't even want to confront her right then. I just kept staring at that screen, feeling numb, betrayed, furious. I kept thinking, how long has this been going on? Was I just blind? Did I mean nothing to her? All those questions unanswered, gnawing at me. I remember feeling a strange mixture of heartbreak and rage, like I wanted to shake her, scream at her, break her phone, but I also knew I had to be smart about it. That night I didn't sleep. I kept replaying everything in my head, the lies, the signs. I missed the footage, her cold explanations when I finally did confront her. She came home late that evening, acting like nothing was wrong. When I showed her her messages, her face twisted into this bitchy sneer, and she tried to deny everything. She told me it was all harmless, just a stupid flirt, that she didn't mean anything by it. Said I was overreacting, that I was paranoid, that I was crazy. But I wasn't buying any of that. I could see the lie in her eyes, and I knew I'd been played for a fool. That's when it hit me. I had to decide what I wanted to do about this mess, because I wasn't going to let her keep lying to my face. Not anymore. After that night, everything changed. I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat, and I definitely couldn't look at her the same way. I felt this bubbling mix of anger, hurt, and disgust, like she had ripped a piece out of me and left me to bleed on the floor. I kept thinking, how did it get this far? How did she manage to hide this from me so well? I mean, I was never fool, but I guess I was blind to what was right in front of me. The woman I loved, the woman I trusted, was sneaking around with some wildlife rehabilitator over a hawk. It sounds ridiculous, but that's what it was. The next day, I knew I had to get some clarity, or at least try to understand what the hell was going on. I decided to follow her. I know, it sounds obsessive, but I didn't care at that point. I needed to see where she was going, who she was with, how deep this thing went. So I followed her to the rehabilitation center just a few miles from our house. She left early, claiming she had to run some errands, but I saw her slip out the back door in her car. I kept my distance, watching her drive in the opposite direction of her usual shopping spots and work. When she pulled into this tiny, out-of-the-way center, I got out of my car and parked down the street, pretending to be a curious passerby. What I saw next made my stomach turn again. She went inside, and I saw her meet someone, Ben, the wildlife guy. He was tall, rough-looking with a beard, wearing a battered baseball cap. The thing is, the cameras from the rehab center recorded everything. I managed to get footage of her going into the examination room with him. They weren't just talking about the hawk, they were making out, touching each other, and I caught her on camera putting her hand under his shirt. I watched the footage over and over, trying to understand how I missed all these signs, how she managed to hide this side of herself for so long. That moment seeing her with him, it was like my entire world shattered again. I felt this explosive surge of rage, but also this deep, aching sadness. She'd been lying to my face for months. I kept asking myself, how could she do this? To us? To me? I was hit with a wave of humiliation, like I'd been played for a damn fool. I'd always thought we had some kind of connection, some honesty. But apparently it was just a facade. She wasn't the woman I knew. She was someone else entirely. I went home that day with the footage and all the evidence I needed. I didn't confront her. That night, what's the point when she's already lying? Instead, I just sat in the dark, watching the video on repeat, trying to piece everything together. I kept asking myself, how deep does this go? Was this just a fling, or was there something more? I was angry at her, furious that she'd betrayed me over a damn hawk and some wildlife rehab guy. But underneath that rage was heartbreak. I realized I was losing the woman I loved, and I didn't even know if I could fix this. I spent the next few days torn between wanting to confront her and wanting to run away from it all. I knew I had to decide soon because every second I hesitated, I felt like I was sinking deeper into this nightmare. I kept thinking about all the moments she lied, the times I trusted her, the promises we made. All of it felt like a cruel joke now. I also knew I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay. If I didn't face her, I'd never get any real answers. And that's when it hit me. I was done being the fool in this story. I had to stand up, face the truth head-on, and figure out what my next move was going to be. That night, I finally decided I couldn't stay silent anymore. The evidence was too clear, and I was sick of pretending everything was fine when it clearly was. I sat her down in the living room, my hands trembling but my voice as steady as I could make it. I showed her the footage from the rehab center, the one I'd been obsessively watching for days. I told her what I saw, how I knew about her and Ben, the wildlife rehabilitator she'd been sneaking around with. Her reaction, oh, it was classic. She looked me straight in the eyes with that bitchy sneer, and she told me I was crazy. "You're overthinking everything, James," she snapped, crossing her arms. "You're just paranoid. I would never cheat on you. You're imagining things." She lied so smoothly, so convincingly, that I almost wanted to believe her. Almost. But the footage told a different story. I pointed out how she kept lying, how she'd been caught on camera making out with him in that exam room, how she'd been sneaking around behind my back for months. She started to get defensive, tossing out cheap excuses. "It's not what you think," she spat. "He's just a friend. We only talked about the hawk, about saving that poor thing, that's all. I didn't mean for it to go this far." Her voice was sharp, like she was trying to push me away, to make me doubt what I saw. She kept insisting that I was paranoid, that I was the one with the problem. Said I was insecure, that I didn't trust her, that I was making a big deal out of nothing. Her words were venomous, and I could feel the anger rising again. But I wasn't going to let her lie her way out of this. I told her I knew everything, about the messages, the meetings, the sex in that examination room. That I had proof she'd been cheating with him all along, over some damn hawk in some stupid rehabilitation center. Her face twisted with rage, and she finally burst out, calling me possessive, jealous, and paranoid. She told me I was being ridiculous, that I was overreacting, that I was ruining everything for no reason, that she hadn't meant for any of it to happen, that it was just an affair of the moment, a stupid mistake. I felt like everything was collapsing around me. I trusted her, loved her, and she was out there screwing some guy who tended injured birds. I mean, what the hell? I was furious, devastated, and honestly, feeling like I'd been punched in the gut. How could she sit there and deny everything so coldly? I wanted to scream, to break something, anything to release the rage boiling inside me. But I stayed silent, just staring at her, feeling my heart harden with each second. In that moment, I realized I had a choice. I could keep fighting, keep hoping she'd come back to me, or I could accept that she was gone, that she'd chosen someone else over us, over me. And as much as it hurt to admit that, I knew deep down I couldn't stay. I couldn't keep pretending that this was just a misunderstanding, that she was going to change, or that we could somehow fix what had been broken. The trust was shattered beyond repair. So I told her I needed some time to think, that I couldn't do this anymore. I gathered the evidence, the footage, the receipts, and walked out that door for good. Walking away that night, I felt like I was leaving a part of myself behind. But I also felt a strange sense of relief. I knew I was done being her fool. I was done living in her lies. And I told myself, no matter how much it hurt now, someday I'd find a way to move on, to heal. Because if there's one thing I've learned from all this, it's that sometimes the truth has to come out, even if it destroys everything first. The days that followed were a blur. I didn't sleep much, kept replaying everything in my head, her lies, the footage, the way she looked at me with that contemptuous sneer. Honestly, I felt broken. It's like I'd been punched in the gut and then kicked while I was down. Every time I thought about her with Ben, I'd get this sick feeling in my stomach. But I also knew I had to get through it somehow. I couldn't stay stuck in that place forever. I decided I needed to get out of the house, clear my head. I moved into a small apartment nearby, just a simple place with a bed and a desk. At first, I thought about confronting her again, demanding answers, but I realized it wouldn't do any good. She'd already lied to my face enough. It was over. The trust was gone, and honestly, I didn't want to be with someone who could betray me so easily. I also started to think about how to handle everything legally, because I knew she'd try to twist things, deny everything, and make me look like some crazy guy. I had to be smart about it. Meanwhile, I kept digging into her phone, trying to find more evidence, more proof of what she'd been up to. I found a bunch of text messages, some pictures, even some recordings she didn't know I'd made. She'd been pretty careless, leaving little breadcrumbs behind. I also talked to some friends, people I trusted, to get their advice. Some told me to just cut my losses and walk away, that I deserved better. Others said I should fight for some kind of justice, maybe take her to court or at least confront her publicly. But I wasn't sure what I wanted anymore. All I knew was I couldn't stay in that house with her, not after everything I'd found out. One thing that really hit me was how she still acted like everything was normal whenever she came over to pick up her stuff. She had this bitchy attitude, like she was better than me, like I was some kind of fool. She kept lying, saying she never meant to hurt me, that she loved me but was just confused, that it was just sex, and that I was overreacting. It was exhausting trying to argue with her. I just wanted her to admit what she did so I could move on. But what cut the deepest was understanding that she didn't care about the damage she caused. She wasn't sorry. That realization hit me hard. I kept thinking about all the years I'd given her, all the dreams we'd shared. And for what? For her to throw it all away over some hawk rehab guy. I mean, maybe I was naive, but I never thought she'd cheat with someone like him, someone who spent his days caring for injured animals while she was out sneaking around with him. It seemed so surreal, yet here I was, holding all the evidence, feeling like I'd been played for a fool. Sometimes I'd lie awake at night, feeling this deep emptiness inside, questioning everything I believed about love and loyalty. I'd get mad, then sad, then angry all over again. Honestly, I didn't know how to move past it, but I also knew that I couldn't keep living in that pain forever. I had to find a way to rebuild, to figure out what I really wanted. The worst part was realizing how much I'd trusted her, how much I'd invested, emotionally, financially, and how she threw it all away over some stupid affair with a guy who cared more about birds than about us. That realization made me feel sick and bitter, but I also knew I had to let go for my own sake. So I started focusing on myself, going to the gym, reconnecting with friends I'd neglected, trying to find some peace. But I also kept a close eye on her, waiting for whatever she'd do next. Honestly, I'd never been so angry and hurt in my life. I kept thinking about how she lied, how she manipulated everything, and how she believed she could just walk away from it all like she hadn't done anything wrong. But I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I knew I had to take some control, even if it hurt like hell. Because if I didn't, I'd feel like I was just giving her the power to ruin me entirely. In the weeks that followed, I felt like I was caught in some kind of endless storm. I'd wake up every morning with that same sick feeling in my stomach, and all I could do was replay everything in my head. The betrayal, her smug attitude, the footage, the suffocating sense that I'd been so blind for so long. I started making plans, not just to get through the days, but to figure out how to get my life back on track. I knew I couldn't stay in the same place emotionally. I had to do something, anything, to regain control. I decided to meet with a divorce lawyer. I wasn't planning to jump into anything immediately, but I wanted to know my options. I had no illusions. This was going to get ugly, and I was prepared for that. My main concern was protecting myself financially, but I also knew I had every right to be furious. How could she do this? How could she lie, cheat, and then act like I was the crazy one? I spent hours drafting what I wanted to say, how I'd confront her if I ever saw her again. Sometimes I visualized going back to her, telling her I knew everything, but I knew better. That ship had sailed. Meanwhile, I kept digging for more evidence. I found even more incriminating texts, some photos of her and Ben in compromising positions, and recordings where she was clearly lying about the affair. I made copies, kept them safe, and even thought about sharing some with her friends. Not because I wanted her to look bad, though she deserved it, but because I needed proof for myself to remind me that I wasn't crazy, that this wasn't just my imagination. The truth was out there, and I had it all in black and white, or rather, in video and audio. But what struck me most was the silence from her side. After that night of her denying everything, she just stopped trying to contact me. No calls, no texts, no sorry. Or I made a mistake. It was like she realized she'd gone too far and decided to disappear. Honestly, part of me felt relief. I didn't want to see her face anymore or hear her lies. I wanted her out of my life completely. Still, I couldn't help feeling a deep, gnawing sadness, because deep down I loved her, or at least I thought I did, and that love had been shattered beyond repair. One day, I finally sat down and wrote a long letter to her, not to send but to get everything out of my system. I poured out all my feelings, anger, betrayal, heartbreak, confusion. I told her how much I hated what she did, how she destroyed the trust we had, and how I felt like I lost a piece of myself in the process. I didn't hold back. I needed to get it all out, to make peace with what had happened, or at least to stop it from eating me alive inside. In that moment of reflection, I realized something important. I'd spent all these years building a life I thought she was part of, but she'd been planning her escape all along. She'd been sneaking around, lying, risking everything, just for a fling with a guy who cared more about birds than about her or me. I had to accept that I couldn't fix her or our marriage. I had to accept that she was gone in a way, and that moving on was the only way to save what was left of me. It hurt more than I could say, but it was necessary. I promised myself I wouldn't let her ruin me completely. I'd find a way to heal, to rebuild, even if it took years. Because at the end of the day, I deserved that much. Maybe more. Now, sitting alone in this apartment, reflecting back on everything, I realize how much I've learned through all this chaos. I used to think I knew what love was, trust, honesty, loyalty. Turns out I didn't know anything. I was blind to the signs, blind to how easily someone could betray you when they think they can get away with it. That woman, Emily, she played me for a fool, and I'll admit, it hurt like hell. But through that pain, I found something crucial: strength. It wasn't easy, and I still feel the sting of betrayal every day, but I also feel a sense of clarity I never had before. I've come to accept that some relationships aren't meant to survive certain betrayals, and that's okay. It hurts, but it's a lesson I won't forget. I've learned to trust my instincts more, to listen to that little voice that warns me when something's off. Because if I had done that from the start, maybe I'd have seen her true nature sooner. Maybe I'd have spared myself all this heartbreak. But I also realize now that I can pick myself up, even after being knocked down so hard. I don't need her to define me or my happiness. Most importantly, I've learned that revenge, as tempting as it is in the moment, doesn't really bring peace. Confronting her, seeing her lie again and again, it's all part of the process. But ultimately, the real victory is in moving forward, in rebuilding yourself piece by piece. I know I'll find someone who values me, who respects honesty, and who doesn't think they can get away with lying and cheating. I deserve that. We all do. Looking back, I don't regret uncovering the truth. It was painful, but necessary. Because in the end, I needed to see her for who she really was, not the woman I loved, but someone who betrayed everything we built. Now I understand that sometimes the only way to truly heal is to face the darkness head on and let it go. It's not easy and it's not quick, but it's worth it. So, to anyone out there going through something similar, trust your gut, stay true to yourself, and don't be afraid to walk away when someone shows you their true colors. You might lose, but in the end, you'll find a better, stronger version of yourself. That's what I'm holding on to now. I may never fully forget what happened, but I'm learning to move past it. And maybe someday, I'll look back and realize that the pain I felt was what finally set me free.